I would like to welcome everyone to Global Insights for Tax Leadership, which I'm hoping will serve as your go-to video series for relevant topics impacting the tax profession. Whether you're a seasoned tax professional or simply someone looking to better understand the complexities of the tax world, this series is really designed with you in mind. Each episode, we're going to dive into the latest tax topics, unraveling some of the intricacies of tax disruptors, tax statutes, regulations, and policies that impact your financial and tax landscape. Join us as we bring in special guests, share insightful discussions, and provide practical tips to help you navigate the ever-evolving tax environment. I'm Jeff Burns, a lead tax partner in KPMG's Business Tax Services practice. And with me today, I have Michael Gray, a manager in KPMG's Ignition practice, also based in Chicago. Being that this is the first episode of Global Insights for Tax Leadership, I really wanted to start with something that's at the forefront of many tax professional minds: artificial intelligence, or AI, including a subset of AI, which is generative AI. So, Michael, first of all, thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a pleasure to be here. Inaugural episode, very exciting.
Thanks, Michael. So the first question I want to start with is around generative AI or Gen AI. And Michael, I think there's a lot of questions in our community around what is this exactly? So could you give some background on Gen AI, what it is, and maybe how it differs from other types of artificial intelligence?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a new entrant into our field and is grabbed all the headlines. I would say the most important to distinguish it from previous versions of AI or variants of AI, as well as other technologies we've seen, including like traditional web search, is Gen AI is be able to use a massive amount of data, compute, and some very sophisticated algorithms to be able to predict and model out language that comes out as a human, fairly intellectual level, where now you can access these new sets of knowledge and also capabilities and a frontier that we've never had before, and be able to have a computer be able to talk back to you. And this type of technology is really transformed of how a tax professional views technology.
Thank you, Michael. That's very helpful. And I setting that as our foundation. And you mentioned something right at the very end there. What do you see as the potential impact on tax as a whole? And maybe add a little bit to that on upskilling.
So in terms of the impact as a whole, we believe pretty firmly there's going to be a pretty significant impact of what a tax professional looks like in the future. And I think exactly what you said, it's going to come twofold. One, in terms of tools in our toolkit, but also what skills are needed for a tax professional to navigate a fairly complex regulatory environment, as well as just the ins and outs of from compliance all the way to planning. And one is be able to how to interact and harness this technology. It's a little bit of learning to talk a new language or new personalities or a new user interface that allows you to effectively take this technology and have tangible value. The second thing, which is also really interesting, that's really important, is to connect it to your own data and be able to have the infrastructure where your current tax deliverables, your current tax data, where it sits, and you can kind of bring this technology and intertwine it so you'll be able to harness it on top of all the existing items that you currently have.
Yeah, and there's a piece in there that I want to circle back on, and maybe this is a twofold question. One is around, you mentioned user interfaces, and I think that brings individuals to the point of data security and how it might impact AI or the use of AI within organizations. So maybe talk a little bit about some considerations individuals should have when they're choosing a platform and what the impact would be on data privacy and data security.
So incredibly important, especially in today's world. To give maybe a quick example is when a tax professional has done traditional tax research on those traditional search bars per se, there isn't necessarily a file upload button or ability to have a back and forth conversation. But in today's world, when you're doing tax research, harnessing this technology, it's not a binary or 10 blue links scenario. now, or just statically looking at the regs. Now you're able to effectively talk to your tax research resources, as well as upload your specific fact patterns or your data, and then help that evolve in terms of your tax research landscape. And once that two-way street opens up where you're uploading data, sharing information, data security and data privacy become utmost important, because a lot of enterprises, this is some of their most sensitive data, and they don't want it going somewhere that's not intended.
Yeah, and I think we've taken that to heart. As we've developed our own Gen AI platforms through Digital Gateway, in the use of KPMG Gen AI, and I think that's a very important piece of this, is that there's a lot of optionality in how we maybe interact with Gen AI and some of the user platforms, and data security and privacy are extremely important. So, we've covered quite a bit today. So I think the biggest question I have as we close this out is, where do you see the future of AI for tax professionals? What maybe that journey looks like today, and then where are we headed?
So in terms of today, we find that tax professionals that use this technology simply are outperforming. They're able to get more done with less, and they just have a better experience in terms of the day-to-day trenches of tax. So in terms of today, beginning to use it, learn how it works, adopting it, the appropriate training and curriculum to broaden your team's ability to touch this technology, and having the right infrastructure in place, that's all key ingredients for success. In terms of the future, to be able to access some pretty technical knowledge barriers, as well as interacting with sophisticated tax data, the ability to build technology and do that seems to be collapsing at pretty quick speeds, because this technology is proliferating across so many areas that a tax professional touches. So I think getting started and touching it and harnessing value of this technology is probably the best move, because the future looks to be so dynamic and moving so fast that you just can't get caught behind.
Thank you, Michael. That's great advice. So I do want to close and say thank you again for your time, for joining me on this first episode. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. This is so much fun, and this is going to be such an exciting series.
Thanks, Michael. And to everyone viewing, look for our next video series. We're going to be discussing updates related to Pillar 2 and where tax professionals should be focused on their Pillar 2 journey. So thank you, and thanks, everyone.